I have a question. What after our last session, we were talking about the red wave, and I was with you. I thought there was going to be a red wave. When there wasn't a red wave, what do you attribute to that? Do you even like reflect on why there wasn't, or are you just like whatever?
No, I reflect on it. I think there's a lot of blue no matter who people, and we don't talk to those people. I think there's a lot of, do
you think Roe v. Wade had a big impact?
Huge impact. A huge impact.
I feel like we underestimated that.
A huge impact. And that was one of the articles that I read that was talking about young women and how many young women voted exclusively Democrat and will continue to do so no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's a big factor.
I wonder too, like I was thinking about it for myself, why whenever I get something wrong like that, which is all the time, I wonder, I look at my own bias and kind of echo chamber and what I'm listening to. And I just think because I was in California and the lockdowns were so stringent and I disagreed with generally the way that it was handled. I underestimated the tolerance that most people had for the lockdowns that they experienced in their state. So I thought it would be a much bigger response. Like in Michigan, they had a lot of stringent lockdowns and it was very blue. So I guess that's one area where I've learned of, like, I'm applying my own lack of tolerance for these lockdowns and seeing how harsh it was on the kids and on small businesses, and I'm applying it to everyone. But a lot of people think that they did the best they could with the information that they were given and that it was handled, they were okay with the lockdowns.
Well, I think if the vote came during the lockdown, things would be very different. But people have very short memories. And once things are back open, like I have friends in California that were talking about moving out of California, and they're like, well, things are kind of almost back to normal now, so I think I'm going to stay.
Right.
So there's a lot of that where people think, better this than having some fascist Republican run things and take away abortion rights and take away this and that. And so I think that's part of it, is that most things have kind of gone back to normal, and people do have short memories. And once they're working again, and once the wheels of society start turning again, they kind of forget about how bad it was in 2020 when everything was just fully locked down and all these businesses went under and 70% of LA restaurants. And
yeah, it was pretty, I think too, and it wasn't as bad in some states as it was in California, but I think most people in California were pretty on board with, clearly they were based on how they vote. I think they're pretty on board with it, for the most part.
Well, I think it's blue no matter who in California. California, particularly Los Angeles and San Francisco, good fucking luck getting a Republican into office there. Good fucking luck.
It's actually becoming more like the Democratic Socialists got 2 people on the board in the city of LA. I think it's becoming more socialist. I read a whole article on, I think it was Jacobin, about how it's a good time to be socialist in Los Angeles. The unions are getting stronger, and it seems like it's going more to the left. I think.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure if it was in that article, but it seems like Texas has become redder and Los Angeles has become, or California has become bluer. So they're becoming more entrenched in their.
Well, the people that left California to come to Texas realized the folly of the ways of California.
Yeah, people were worried about, like, don't California my Texas, but when you actually poll the people who moved to Texas from states like California, they tend to vote more red because they're like, we know what this leads to.
Yeah, I have some friends that were hardcore lefties that voted all red.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were hardcore lefties before the pandemic, like hippies.
Yeah,
like literal hippies. And they're like, fuck these people. Like this, what they're doing is they're taking away people's ability to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
And, if they were personally affected by it, it's varying degrees of, whether or not you're going to act or do something about it, or whether you're just going to stick with your ideology.
Yeah, and I wonder, too, if there was no real red wave because a lot of the people who might have voted red in these places left those places and went somewhere red.
Well, also, how much do you believe in voter fraud? How much do you think that there's
Voter
manipulation?
fraud.
How much do you think that there's? It's like we've talked about this before. That it's not 0%. Like,
yeah, I don't. I mean,
it's not zero.
I don't believe the election was stolen. You know, I'm not I'm not anywhere near that level. I do think with mail-in ballots in particular, there is, and like ballot harvesting being allowed, that seems like a weird thing to me. The mail-in ballots, I think it's like I'm torn about it. On the one hand, I'm glad that people who it might be they're elderly, it might be hard for them to get to the polls that they can vote. But on the other hand, I think there's so much room for
Fuckery.
fuckery.